Ready to Rumble is corny, cheesy, dumb, stupid, and I love every second of it. This movie is the definition of guilty pleasure. Growing up a lifelong wrestling fan and loving everything professional wrestling, Ready to Rumble is like a wrestling fan's comedy. It's dumb, it's stupid, it has too many wrestlers in this movie make cameos in this movie. This movie, of course, is the infamous movie that gave us David Arquette, which gave Vince Russo a glorious idea to put the WCW championship on him in order to promote this movie. Yes, this is the one. This is the notorious movie that gave us Arquette as the WCW champion in real life. But what do I think about this movie as a whole? I enjoy it. I love it. I saw this movie when I was 10 years old in the movie theaters with my father. I saw it because I'm a diehard wrestling fan, and I was getting into WCW at that time, the year 2000, not knowing it was going to go out of business a year later. So 2 years prior to seeing this movie, I was already a wrestling fan because of the WWF. And then in the year 2000, I started getting into WCW and saw this movie. And this movie, you have Goldberg, you got Sting, the Disco Inferno, Rey Mysterio, Billy Kidman, Booker T, Bam Bam Bigelow, Sid Vicious, Perry Saturn, Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, Conan. Pretty much any big name WCW star at that time, DDP, is in this movie. DDP actually plays an important part in this movie because he's the main heel, and Jimmy King, played by Oliver Pratt, is the babyface. And what I like about this movie is that, to me, this is written like a wrestling storyline. When you actually watch this movie and you actually look at wrestling storylines, it's written like an overproduced Vince Russo wrestling storyline, and that kind of makes me appreciate it even more. It really does. No, you got the character. You have Gordy and Shawn, played by David Arquette and Scott Caan, who are good friends. And I want to say that I think Arquette and Scott Caan, they have genuine chemistry with one another, and I buy them as being very close friends. They work really well with one another, to me at least. Their comedic timing is pretty funny. I always thought David Arquette is an extremely underrated actor, and Scott Caan has impressed me in a couple of movies aside from this one. Together, I think they're actually pretty fun with one another. Yeah. So like I said, they play lifelong wrestling fans, and one night they are in Wyoming, at the Wyoming Civic Center, watching a random edition of Monday Nitro, where we have a title change take place. Titus Sinclair, played hilariously by Joey Pantoliano. Joey Pantoliano is so good at playing a caricature of an evil wrestling promoter. I wish he was in wrestling. I wish Joey Pantoliano was in the wrestling business, because he's so good at just being this over-the-top caricature of a Vince McMahon type character. He's hilarious to watch. I'm a fan of Joey Pantoliano to begin with, but in this movie, I love him as Titus Sinclair. He's like a over-the-top version of Eric Bischoff. It's great. He's got the long hair, this Native American jacket. He's so over the top with it. And you can clearly tell the guy's having a good time with the role. And he, of course, plays an important part of this movie as well, because he's the guy that screws over Jimmy King. And I want to say Oliver Platt as Jimmy King. I like Oliver Platt as Jimmy King. He actually played the role kind of serious. He didn't really ham it up. He played it straightforward, and I appreciate it. And I kind of appreciate him for that. Like, Jimmy King is a representation of that wrestler who was big in the 80s, and when you see them now, and when they crash, they just hit rock bottom. That's what happens. Jimmy King, he gets screwed over by Sinclair and Page. He hits rock bottom, steals his parents' motorhome, becomes a reclusive drunk. And Gordy and Shawn got to help him reclaim his glory. And the movie, we just see the bond between these three characters, Jimmy King, Gordy, and Shawn, and we see just how close they really become as they're generally trying to help their idol reclaim his lost glory. At first, King resists it, but then he ultimately accepts it, and a very strong friendship and bond forms between the three characters. I thought the movie did that pretty well. Once they get to New York, that's where the movie actually really gets fun. It's not just the scene where, we get a backstage brawl between Jimmy King and Page, but we have Martin Landau in this movie, who plays probably one of the best characters in this whole movie, who has some of the best lines in this whole movie. Sal Bandini, wanna wrestle? A combination. Sal Bandini is the New York version of Stu Hart, and Martin Landau is having a ball with his performance. He is so funny as Sal Bandini. Every time I see Martin Landau in this movie as Sal Bandini, I stop what I'm doing and I watch it because he's hilarious. And Martin Landau, you can tell Martin Landau is just having a ball playing the New York version of Stu Hart. He's hilarious. He's great. And he also has a nice little scene in the hospital after he gets attacked by Psycho Sid and Perry Saturn, which is actually a really funny scene, seeing Bandini take down Sid and Saturn. It's hilarious. But, after, Sid and Saturn get the best of him, he ends up in the hospital. Of course, we find out that those events were orchestrated by Titus. So anyway, he has this nice little conversation with Jimmy King where he tells King, play two-man strengths up the middle. That's where this action is. It's a really good conversation, and it's a really good motivation for King to keep doing what he's doing. And I know Sal's supposed to be the mentor, and I think he does, and he fits into that role really, really well. If I have one problem with this movie, I would have liked to have seen Sal actually go to Vegas with the guys at the end of the movie. That's just me. I think that would have been a nice little thing, and I think and I would like to have seen Sal get some payback on Sinclair for putting him in the hospital. We also got this other subplot where Gordy falls in love with the Nitro girl played by Rose McGowan named Sasha, and just Rose McGowan. In this movie, she is drop dead gorgeous. Oh my God. That's all I got to say about Rose McGowan as Sasha, the head Nitro girl, who's also working with Titus and trying to manipulate the team. Alright, so let's bring this home. So we finally get to the Vegas match, which introduces us to this triple cage of death. And this entire main event is Vince Russo's wet dream. If you're watching this on an actual wrestling show, it'll be like, this is overbooked as fuck. There's 600 different things happening at once. There's this subplot with Jimmy King and his son. Then there's this subplot with Gordy and Sasha that's getting us wrapped up. But at the same time, you got Page and King having their match. You have Titus, who threatens Sting's career if he decides not to help Page win. You got so many different things happening in this one match. It's literally like watching a Vince Russo wet dream. But the movie kind of like I said, this movie is written in some ways like a wrestling storyline. And this is that perfect example. Like, these people really took the time to research how to do a wrestling story, how to write wrestling storylines. Because the entire main event of this movie is like an overbooked wrestling storyline, and I love it for the ridiculousness of it. So anyway, Goldberg, who in an earlier scene was telling Gordy and Shawn that he once looked to Jimmy King, but Jimmy King let him down. In this movie, that comes full circle when he actually helps Jimmy King after Jimmy King's beaten up by Page and his goons. So I like how that comes full circle. I also like this thing with Gordy. I actually like Gordy's subplot with his dad, played by Richard Lineback. For those of you who don't know who Richard Lineback is, when you see the man's face, Friday the 13th Part 5, he plays a cop. In this movie, he plays Gordy's father, who's also a cop and doesn't like him being a wrestler and wants to force him to be a cop. But Gordy's father has a nice payoff because he's watching his son on pay-per-view and he starts to get into the whole wrestling thing. At first, he was like, wrestling's fake and wrestling's for little boys. When he sees his son wrestling and kicking ass, he's like, that's my boy, that's my boy. Okay, so when all is said and done, Jimmy King wins the WCW title. He's able to make good on the promise he made, which is to make peace with his wife, make peace with his son, make peace with himself. He's the champ again. He got $1 million, and all is right with the world. We get a nice ending where they beat up a shopkeep owner who at the beginning of the movie was being a prick to both Gordy, Shawn, and a bunch of kids. It also has a very entertaining dream sequence where we see Gordy teaming up with King to take on Ahmed Zappa and the Macho Man Randy Savage in a little dream in a dream sequence, dream tag team match inside of the candy shop, which is hilarious. And seeing Randy Savage is always hilarious because he's Randy Savage and he's awesome. So overall, those are my thoughts on Ready to Rumble. As you can tell, this movie is ridiculously stupid and dumb as all hell, but it's so entertaining and it's so much fun to watch, and I get enjoyment out of watching. I like it that much. And I'm actually gonna do something different this time around. I'm not really gonna give this movie a grade from a 1 to 10 scale. I'm just gonna say this is my guilty pleasure movie that does not deserve a rating, because a movie like this is not really meant to be rated on any scale. It's just dumb, fun entertainment, and I like it. As a huge wrestling fan, I still get enjoyment out of this. So yeah, those are my overall thoughts on Ready to Rumble. Let me know if you like this movie down in the comment sections below. Also, I want to give a shout out to one of my subscribers, Hey Internet, this is Eric, for recommending this movie for me to review and watch. Eric, thank you so much for rekindling my interest in Ready to Rumble. I haven't watched this movie in a couple of years, and watching it again, I enjoyed it more now than I ever did before. So, Eric, thank you very much. If you guys want to check out Eric's channel, I'll provide a link for you in the description box below. Eric is a good guy. He makes good videos, and you should give him a watch. Anyway, my name is AJ Legend. Like this video and subscribe to my channel, and I'll check you back next time for more.